if there is something, then it must be having some source. Now that source may be beyond the interpretation capacity of the human brain itself. Because when we think logically and when we answer, when we start going deep into a question, then after a certain time we cannot answer, because we have reached to the limit of the brain, we have reached to the limit of resolution of the brain itself, beyond which brain cannot think, because it's not being given information beyond that thing. But certainly there exists something beyond that thing, and from that beyond, everything has been created. So as simple as that. So there exist certain dimensions when time ceases to exist. And when time ceases to exist, then there is no need to travel. Everything is connected. And everything is instantaneous. The space separation does not matter over there. So I think quantum entanglement is very related to that field. Now let us talk about this spooky action at a distance. Spooky itself means something which is weird, which cannot be logically explained. So Albert Einstein proposed that nothing can travel faster than light. So any information cannot travel faster than light. But if we think about the human mind itself, then certainly mind is metaphysical. So you don't need any space-time curve for it to exist. Mind exists. And that something does not require a space-time. It is beyond the space-time curve. So let us take example of two photons may be separated by thousands of light years, but the impact of affecting first photon ultimately affect the second photon. So quantum entanglement is all about this, that suppose at t is equal to 0 you apply certain suppose you apply, let's take another example, because photons are electrically neutral. Let's take example of an electron. There are two electrons, let's separated by 1000 light years. So if we assume that there is a quantum entanglement, that means they are ultimately connected through something which is beyond the space-time curve itself, or which is from that dimension which created the space-time fabric itself. So if you apply electric or magnetic fields to change some aspects, some physical properties of the electron, let's say the magnetic moment of the electron, then ultimately if we observe the second electron which is entangled to the first one, then ultimately its magnetic moment will also get changed. And this is not a theoretical perspective. In 2022, Nobel Prize was awarded for the explanation of this, or for the proposing the quantum entanglement. So that means there is something beyond the space-time curve itself, through which all of us are connected. Now I think that in a much metaphysical perspective or a spiritual perspective, just ask yourself that from where consciousness comes, or from where consciousness enters a womb, or where the consciousness goes when it leaves a dead body, or sorry, when it leaves a body. Dead will be after the ejection of the consciousness, and from where it is created. I hope you are able to relate that everything physical is within the space-time curve, and something metaphysical is from beyond the space-time curve, from something which was always there, which is always there, and which will always be there. The process of creation and destruction has continued till infinite time, and time itself is not fundamental. There exist certain things which are beyond time. Now there is very interesting analogy or reference to the time. In Indian mythology, according to the Shiv Purana, Lord Shiva is Anadi and Anant. That means he is omnipresent. He was always there, he is always there, and he will always be there, beyond the limits of time itself. So if we relate the something which is beyond the space-time curve to Lord Shiva, then there is a mythological reference to that also. And interestingly, Lord Shiva is also called the Mahakala, or Kala in Hindi language refers to time. So ultimately, within space, time is that which is responsible for moving the space or changing the space itself. You take example of any piece of life, then any piece of life is fundamentally comprising of organ systems, which are composed of organs made of cells made of DNA, which is a combination of adenine, thymine, cytosine and guanine, which are fundamentally composed of atoms, which are composed of electrons, protons, neutrons, which are further composed of quarks, which are composed of strings vibrating with a certain frequency. So that frequency, or the impact on the frequency, is the effect of time. What time does is that in some way it's just manipulate the frequency of vibrations of the strings within the quarks, within the protons, neutrons, or within the atoms of any organism. And that is how life is working, how the entire cosmos are working. So certainly there exists a quantum entanglement which is beyond the space-time curve.